Hello, my name is Brandy Massey. My experiment asked the question, do earthworms show any differences in burrowing behavior into a substrate when presented with the treatment substrates of dry rice, dry beans, and a combination of dry rice and soil? This investigation will answer the research question by observing whether earthworms will burrow into the control condition, dry soil, or in the substrates of rice and beans, which were also dry. If the earthworms did burrow, then how long it took them to burrow on average will be calculated. The time to burrow in these two different substrate test conditions will each be compared to the control separately to see if the earthworms tended to burrow more quickly or slowly when in the test substrates than when in the control substrate of dry soil. It will also be determined whether both test substrates showed the same impact on desire to burrow or burrowing time. I chose to test the burrowing times of earthworms in different substrates simply because it was a continuation of what we've been studying this semester. I thought it would be interesting to see just how a change in the consistency of the substrates could affect the worms. I chose rice because I thought it would mimic what it might be like for worms to burrow in freshly tilled dirt, and beans to see if the density changed the time it took for them to burrow. You can see on my result sheet my control was dry soil with no vibration, no sweetener, no scent. I placed the worms on top of the substrate and observed them for a full 3 minutes. All of my worms that were tested burrowed within the 3-minute observation time. And you can actually look at the averages of the times. The average time for just dry soil was 69.63 seconds. The average time for rice was 102.88 seconds, with the rice soil combination being 92.88 seconds. The average time for the dry beans was 121.13 seconds. So we can see that they really didn't like the dryness of the beans, which was surprising to me. I thought that they would burrow faster into the beans than they did the dry rice just because of the consistency. My hypothesis about the burrowing preferences was supported. With the difference in density of substrates, it took longer for the worms to burrow. So my initial hypothesis was if worms are placed on dry soil, burrowing times will be consistent with the burrowing times demonstrated in our prior experiments. If the worms were placed in dry rice, burrowing times would be slower than that of the control due to the change in the consistency of the substrates. So I was a little bit off on the rice, but the studies were pretty consistent with the worms preferring to be in the soil. The worms were attracted to the soil substrate, which was our control. Worms hesitated with the rice and beans due to the dryness and the consistency. They hesitated momentarily before they did attempt to burrow. Some even tried to crawl up the side of the cup to get out. In researching preferred substrates of the worms, it was an interesting process for me. Worms are everywhere, and I never really paid attention to them, but learning how helpful they are in a garden has made a difference in how we'll plant our garden here on our farm this year. Living in rural Nash County and growing more dependent on sustainable agriculture to feed a growing family makes this research more important to everyone involved. You can see my treatment results. The dry soil was definitely the favored, followed by the rice and soil combination, and then followed by the rice, and then the least favored was the dry beans. The burrowing times they fluctuated between 45 seconds and 140 seconds, but in my research that I did, all of my worms did burrow. Thank you.